Wait, so today we're going to deep dive into Happify Your Life Publishers.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it does, actually.
Yep.
So we're going off of like their About page.
Okay.
And they talk about this whole thing, soul flow,
Mm-hmm.
and how it like helps you, get to happiness.
Right, right.
And I don't know, I thought it sounded pretty intriguing, so I figured we should dive in.
Yeah, it definitely it piqued my interest too when I first saw it.
Right.
Like, how do they define soul flow? What does that even mean?
Yeah, and like even just the language they use on the website.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very
Flowery.
flowery, yeah.
Yeah.
They use words like luscious content
All right.
and sparkles and magical ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of like almost fairy tale-esque language.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think they're going for with that?
I think, well, first of all, it's memorable, right?
Right.
Like you read that and you're like, ooh, sparkles.
Yeah.
But I think they're also maybe trying to appeal to people who are, maybe a little bit intimidated by the idea of like self-help or personal growth.
Yeah, it can be kind of a...
Yeah, it can be very serious.
Yeah.
And so I think by using this kind of like lighthearted, whimsical language,
Right.
they're trying to make it feel more approachable and fun.
Yeah, more inviting. Yeah.
Exactly.
Come along on this magical journey with us,
Yeah, and I think it also kind of speaks to this idea that like personal growth doesn't have to be this like, grueling, difficult process. It can actually be joyful and exciting.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what they're getting at with that language.
I like that.
Yeah.
And they also talk a lot about how everyone's journey is unique.
Absolutely.
So it's not like a one-size-fits-all approach to happiness.
No, not at all.
Which I think is, kind of refreshing because a lot of times you see like these self-help gurus who are like, this is the way, do what I say.
Yeah, like a 10-step program to happiness.
Right, exactly.
But I think Happify Your Life publishers, they really seem to emphasize that, what works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
And that it's really about finding your own path.
And that's where the soul flow comes in.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do they define soul flow, would you say?
Well, it's not like they give a really clear-cut definition.
Right.
But I think it's more about this idea of like tapping into your own inner wisdom.
Okay.
And trusting your intuition.
Right.
And kind of like aligning with your true self.
Okay, so aligning with your true self, and then that leads you to happiness.
I think that's the general idea, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it kind of ties into like some of the ideas from humanistic psychology.
Right.
Like Carl Rogers, for example, he talked about this concept of self-actualization, which is basically like becoming the best version of yourself.
Right.
And I think soul flow kind of fits into that in a way.
Like you're becoming your best self by following this like internal compass.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's not about like conforming to any external expectations.
Right. It's more about figuring out what works for you in your own life.
Right. And what your own values are and what your own goals are.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I also noticed they talk about this idea of divine timing.
Yes.
Which kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, I can see why.
Because it sounds very like fate, destiny,
Right. Like it's all predetermined.
Yeah, exactly.
But then how does that work with like personal agency?
Really?
Like if everything is already decided, then what's the point of even trying to like happify your life?
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of all this?
Right.
So what do you make of that?
Well, I think it depends on how you interpret divine timing.
Okay.
It could be seen as like a belief in a fixed destiny,
Yeah.
Like everything is already planned out.
Right.
But I think it could also be understood as more about recognizing that like there are natural rhythms and cycles in life. Like sometimes things just fall into place effortlessly.
Right.
And other times we face obstacles that force us to like reevaluate and redirect our course.
Oh. Yeah, it's like, maybe not everything happens for a reason, but you can find a reason for everything that happens.
Exactly.
Like find the meaning in it.
And I think divine timing in that sense is more about like trusting that unfolding, even when it feels challenging or uncertain.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily about control, but about like acceptance and trusting the process, maybe.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So speaking of Happify Your Life publishers, I was curious about the publishers themselves.
Oh, yeah?
Irmgard Dannen and Adrian Willems.
Those are some names?
Yeah, those are some names, right?
Yeah.
They sound very European to me.
Very European, yeah.
Do you think their like cultural background could influence their approach to happiness?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Europe has this long history of, philosophy and spirituality. Like the existentialists, for example, Sartre, Camus,
Yeah.
they really emphasize like individual freedom and responsibility and creating meaning in a world that can sometimes feel absurd.
Right.
And then you have the Romantic poets who were all about like the beauty of nature and the power of human emotions.
Yeah.
So I think those kinds of traditions could definitely play a role in how Happify Your Life publishers approach happiness.
Like maybe they see happiness as more of an like internal process.
Yeah, like an inner journey.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you know, they have this one line on their website that really stood out to me.
Okay, which one?
It says, "There is nobody who can happify your life more than you."
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's very bold
It is.
and like empowering in a way.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder, like, if that's true, then why do we need any guidance at all?
That's a great question.
Like, why are we even looking at their website?
Right.
You know?
Well, I think it's about finding that balance, right?
Okay.
Like, they offer guidance, they offer these publishing sparkles, as they call them,
Right.
but they're ultimately pointing you back to yourself.
Okay.
It's kind of like, you know, if you're going on a hike,
Okay.
you might have a map
Yeah.
to give you a general sense of direction,
Right.
but you also need a compass
Okay.
to help you stay on track.
So the map is like their guidance.
Yeah, exactly.
And the compass is like our own intuition.
Exactly.
Okay, so we use the map to get started, but then we have to trust our own inner compass to actually reach our destination.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not about like blindly following their advice.
Right.
It's about using it as a starting point and then trusting your own inner guidance to lead you the rest of the way.
Okay, I like that. I like that analogy a lot.
Good, good.
So I think that's a good place to wrap up our deep dive into Happify Your Life publishers.
I think so too.
But, you know, it leaves me with a question like, if we're all capable of happifying our own lives, and if, like they say, our souls are already full of light and our hearts full of love,
Right.
then what's holding us back?
Ooh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's something for everyone to kind of reflect on for themselves, you know?
Yes.
Like, what are the things that are getting in your way?
Yeah.
Is it fear? Is it societal conditioning? Is it lack of self-belief?
Maybe all of the above.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the first step is just becoming aware of those things.
Right. Becoming aware of what those obstacles are.
Exactly. And then you can start to work on overcoming them.
So I guess that's our challenge to the listeners today.
Yes.
Go out there and figure out what's blocking your soul flow.
And then get that flow going.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that was fun.
That was a good dive.
Yeah.
See you next time.
See you next time.